Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to FiredUp. My name is Morgan McLintic, and today I'm joined by Nicole Pytel. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
Hey, Morgan, I'm good. Hey, everybody. How you doing out there?
So today we're going to be talking about marketing in an age of uncertainty, and whether it's tariffs or interest rates or the impact of AI, we're certainly in an age of uncertainty. And it's natural probably for prospects and customers to feel a little unsure about their budgets. Maybe it's changing their buyer behavior. And what does that mean for us as startup marketers? What do we have to do? What should we think about? Should we just carry on? So we thought we would just unpack what we're seeing across our clients and out there in startup marketing land today about this topic, Nicole.
Yeah, absolutely. No better time to talk about this topic. There's always going to be something, so I might as well talk about it now.
So last week or a couple of weeks ago, we talked a lot about messaging and how that's sort of impacting the fact that a lot of content isn't getting traffic, and there's a lot of stuff to go that went into that too. But I think sort of top of the show here, messaging is something that we certainly want to look at when we're thinking about, all right, has something changed with my buyer? And what does that mean for what I'm saying to them?
Yeah, 100%. We talked a lot about messaging and the fact that it is not set and forget. I think a lot of businesses understand that you need to kind of look at your messaging when you launch a new product, or maybe you go into a new market or something like that. I think the flip side of that is when something happens to your target audience, even if it's the same persona, you're selling to the exact same person in the organization and in the exact same industries, you've got the same sweet spot. If something's going on with them, your messaging might need to adapt. And I feel like we've talked a lot about it. We're seeing a lot of shift to this thought of agility, and it's a great buzzword. It's a word that everybody loves to use, but I think really it talks to giving your audience this power to take on whatever is coming from a macro force event. And honestly, I think switching up your messaging, especially from an agility perspective, it shows a little bit of empathy on your brand's part. It shows that you understand what they're going through, you understand the pressure that they're facing, and you're trying to equip them with the tools and the superpowers to be able to deal with that. So I think being able to make that switch into more agility and less about the buzzword and more about kind of the superpower that you're giving to your audience with that agility, I think can make a big difference and kind of ease some of those fears.
I mean, it would be natural for prospects to think that, hey, if this product takes me down a particular path to solve only one problem, what if that problem goes away or eases or becomes less of a priority? Then, you're a point solution and I don't need you anymore. Whereas if you can sort of emphasize, well, look, we can evolve as your different needs change, then that's important. I'm also seeing a lot more sort of messaging around speed to value, right? How quickly can deploying your product get some real returns for the customer? And so whether you're in security or whatever sector you're in, you've got to kind of get that speed message across, whether that's on your website, but also like in case studies, okay? How quickly did this customer see returns and what were they? That's going to be a very simple way that you can update your messaging to just flex with the times, where obviously time horizons have been pulled in and prospects are looking for rapid returns. Two main things on messaging, talking about agility and the different use cases for your product or service, pulling in time to value, ROI, as quickly as possible. I think definitely the direction to go there.
I think those are always good directions to go in, but I think especially now, I think that's really what people are looking for right now. They've got to be able to pivot, and they've got to be able to do more with less. We've been having that conversation for last couple of years. Our last year's Startup Marketer Outlook told us that. We're still talking about it, but leaning in with those, I think, will definitely help. I love your point about the case studies. I think that you should always be thinking in terms of case studies. Everything you go into should be, hey, could this be a case study? Or let's keep tabs. When is it a case study? Or when is it just, hey, we did something really cool. It may not be case study worthy yet. It may not be ready to build out a full case study, but maybe just a testimonial that you can throw on your homepage just to give a little bit more social proof, a little bit more real world impact can make all the difference right now.
People don't want to take the risk purchasing. They need that proof. They're more important than ever on the user testimonial side. So totally agree with that. Second thing that is changing at the moment is just the overall sort of mix, or really the goals of the mix. And this one is a little bit counterintuitive because you would think that when times are hard and we're in a period of inflexibility, the primary goal would be lead gen, right? We need leads. And look, all startups and scale-ups need to drive revenue pipeline. So we get that. That's always there. But actually, I think now is the time to focus on awareness. And let's just talk about why that is, Nicole.
Yeah, absolutely. I think startups and scale-ups, they don't have the brand awareness that the industry giants have. They never will. So they're always kind of behind the curve a little bit. You know, everybody's heard of Google or everybody's heard of OpenAI, but they haven't heard of your startup. Now, that doesn't mean you can't compete with those guys. It doesn't mean your solution's not any better or comparable to those guys. It just means that you've got to clear a hurdle first that those guys don't have to clear. And when you're dealing with, a lot of macro stuff going on and your buyer kind of feels like they don't have control over a lot, at least what's going on around them, they're going to really clamp down control on what they can control. And what they can control is doing business with somebody that they've heard of, somebody that they trust, somebody that's got that social proof that has done for other companies what they need done for them. And I think that's why we're seeing more of a push for awareness. And we've got clients that we're doing a lot more awareness for right now who used to be lead gen, lead gen, lead gen. And lead gen gets harder at a time like this when nobody knows who you are. It's always hard when nobody knows who you are, but I think right now it's especially hard. And so you've really got to lean into that. Who are we? Let's get our name out there. Let's get a really sticky campaign out there. Let's show our value in a really creative way that somebody's actually going to stop and look at when they're scrolling through LinkedIn or they're searching for something on Google or they're on Reddit doing something, any of those things. If you've got really cool ad creative or a really cool tagline or just a really cool way of making your business memorable, that's going to go a long way. And if you can get those people onto your website, then you can start to remarket to them. And then you can start to ask for the lead gen. We're not saying that you should stop trying to generate leads. We're just saying you need to take some of that budget and allocate it towards awareness because straight lead gen is just not going to pay off like it once did.
I think Ram Fishkin from SparkToro came up with a stat or shared a stat, something like 80% of B2B purchases end up buying a product or service that they were already aware of before they started their product search. And so unless you're one of those companies, you're probably unlikely to close that deal. And I would say that now if budgets are uncertain for prospects, then lead gen is going to be hard. The cost per lead is going to go up because these prospects just don't have the budgets to buy it, whereas they will in the future. And so leaning into awareness as a goal, building the brand, will set you up for a more efficient cost per leads down the road when your prospects have the budget that you are fighting for. Yes, we've got to have lead gen. We've got to have pipeline in order to sort of survive through the next quarter. Everybody gets that. But counterintuitively, now is probably a time to push more on awareness because prospects are becoming more cautious and they may not have the budget to close now anyway. So lay some foundations for future revenue today. Next thing here is an impact on creativity. I think this is just more sort of emotional, right? We as marketers all want to be creative. I think we all are. You've got to be practical with your creativity, but it does involve risk because if you want to break through and do something novel, nobody has done it before, right? And so that's risky and you might feel anxious about that. And you should always feel a little bit anxious when you press the go button on any marketing campaign because it shows that you're sort of pushing your boundary. But we all have jobs. People have got families and financial obligations, and we have to stand up for results. And so taking risks in this kind of period feels extra risky, if that makes sense.
It does. And there's always a risk, especially when you're a startup or a scale up. The budget's always much more limited than a big brand that can come out and try to make a splash with something. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You move on to the next thing. You're right. You should feel a little bit of anxiety. A little bit of anxiety is good. I think it's a sign that you're doing something special. You're doing something unique. You're doing something creative. And there's a lot of talk right now, thanks to AI, with this sea of sameness, and that all brands that, with the same value proposition and the same target audience, they're all sounding the same right now. So I think, yes, it's scary to be extra creative when things seem a little bit tighter and maybe it's a little bit harder to sell. But you've also got to kind of tippy toe out onto that ledge outside the box and say, okay, what are we going to do to make ourselves stand out? We just talked about awareness. If you look and sound and are saying all the same things that all of your competitors are saying, no one's going to remember who you are. So you've got to do something, whether it's a really cool campaign, maybe it's a really cool tagline, maybe it's just a really cool way of showcasing yourself. Maybe it's ad creative. Maybe it's a video. Maybe it's, a social campaign. Maybe it's something. Nobody's saying that you need to change your entire corporate brand and your corporate identity. Take a campaign, run it for 90 days, see if it works. You take a risk and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if you sound the same as everybody else, that's not going to work either.
This could be an opportunity, right? I like to think of a lot of marketing as a bit of a portfolio. You have lots of different tactics across these different channels, and you've got to sort of spread your investment and your emphasis across all those to see what works and then sort of invest more in it over time. And that could be across the mix and PR and digital marketing and SEO and field marketing, all those different things. You adjust that mix, right? Start small and grow up. I always think for when it comes to creativity, the same applies, right? Take a bit of a portfolio. You don't have to go all in on some massive idea that you haven't done before and take a lot of risks. You can start small and just do a little bit and build up that muscle and that sort of tolerance within your organization for taking risks and sort of ease into it. And maybe in a time of uncertainty, we just adjust our risk profile a little bit down and we're a bit safer. But there's always maybe 20% of our spend on stuff that is a little bit speculative, is a bit quirky, is a bit different, bit of fun, use a sense of humor. Whatever creative outlet that you might want, it might be a new channel. That could be the creativity, right? We've never done anything on TikTok. We're just going to give it a go. We're not going to go all in on it. Or it could be, we're just going to we're going to go into influencer marketing and we're going to do a paid engagement with this particular influencer. We're not going to go huge with some great big celebrity and their agency, talent agency. We're going to start small, but it's going to be fun and it's going to be energizing and that will energize your team. So I do think about marketing as overall as a portfolio, but also risk within that portfolio. Yeah, dial it down a little bit now because we all want to hold on to our jobs and we want to make sure that we're delivering on core things. But zero risk is actually taking a big risk.
I love the point you make about having some fun because I think back to many more years ago than I like to count, when we had consultants come in to the news station and would pull up a bunch of videos of us and give us the good, the bad, and the ugly about presentation. And one of the biggest things they always said that if you're not enthusiastic about delivering it, no one's going to be enthusiastic about consuming it. Now, that doesn't mean you come in and with some god-awful news story and all happy and excited and smiling, but you've got to show some interest in something. And if you're just cranking out the same old and there's no creativity, you're not excited about that. And your target audience isn't going to be excited about it. And if they're not excited about it, then are they really going to do business with you? Are they going to become a lead? Are they going to talk to sales? Are they going to do any of those things? Probably not.
That's a good point. A bit like the marketing equivalent for when you're sort of calling people, if you're doing that, you got to smile into the phone. And that's what they always used to say. And anyone who's done that, they'll know that it works. So what's the marketing equivalent of that? It might be doing something a little bit novel and innovative in your marketing. Okay, so we've talked a bit about messaging. We've talked a little bit about the sort of focusing on awareness. We've talked about creativity. The next point here is attribution.
Attribution is everything, and yet it is so hard all at the same time. Because if you don't know what's working, you can't do more of it, and you can't stop doing what's not working. And it's a conversation that we have with clients all the time. And we're seeing, a lot of clients just really want to get dialed in their HubSpot, or maybe integrating Salesforce with HubSpot and saying, okay, we need a better view of what's going on, or we need a more end-to-end view. Like maybe we know what's happening on the marketing side, but we don't know what's happening on the sales side, and sales is off doing their own thing. And we need a system where everybody can talk to each other and everybody can see everything else and everybody knows what's going on. Attribution is always going to be a talking point because it's so important and it's so hard. But it's something that, take the opportunity now to really sit down and go, do we have visibility to everything that we should? Do we know where these leads are coming from? Do we know what is really inspiring an MQL to become an SQL or things like that? What are those conversations? What are those value propositions? Like, what are those campaigns? What are those types of content that are getting people in the door and guiding them through the funnel? Because if you can't answer those questions, you're never going to be able to run an efficient marketing department, because you're going to be doing all kinds of things, many of which aren't as effective as you may think. And then you're just wasting time and money. And that's never a good thing, ever.
Right. I mean, attribution is hard. If you ask people for their opinions, a lot of people are like, oh, whatever model you choose, whether it's MQLs or SQLs or qualified accounts, or you're looking at intent signals as measurement, obviously all boils down to sort of pipeline revenue in the end. But, now we've just talked about awareness. You've got to measure that. Measuring awareness and brand lift is super important, but also really hard. Most private companies, startups are not out there doing primary research into unprompted brand recognition. They can't afford it, and they shouldn't. But you've got to have some kind of way of measuring that. But now is the time to kind of get all those things dialed in and have a sort of thesis. We are certainly seeing more companies doing that Salesforce work. Salesforce is a, 25, 30-year-old application at this point. It doesn't integrate very well with a lot of marketing platforms like HubSpot. It needs specialists to do that. And often once you kind of get into that, you realize, wow, these leads are expensive and they need to be treated with care. And are we getting the right? And so it opens up a whole other realm of questions about it. Obviously, the business is working, but you need to be efficient. So now is the time to sort of have those conversations and get that work done so that you have a really good sort of foundation for measurement. Because when budgets and things are uncertain, the metrics are going to show the way, and you've got to have good metrics, not just at the top of the funnel, but all the way down to closed. And you will be shocked at how few companies actually have that dialed in. It's rare, I'm going to just say.
It is rare because it is so hard, but also it makes, going back to creativity, it makes the creativity a little bit easier when you can tell exactly what's working and exactly what's not working. So even if it feels like you're taking this giant leap to do something creative, if you've got other data that says, when we do this, it works. When we do that, it doesn't work. That gives you a little bit more of a compass to point you in the right direction for where you should be creative. And it makes it a little less scary.
So whatever your model, whatever your tech stack is, try and get all that dialed in. And I think related here, we're starting to see some tools with AI. So you can build your nice dashboard, but you can also have a chat interface in there where you can ask additional follow-up questions. It's nice to have a sort of a cockpit, a flight deck to see the various graphs, but then you want to click in and ask questions. And normally that means someone going away, an analyst working it out, and that takes time. But we're starting to see LLMs now make that a little bit easier. I mean, you've always got the sort of probabilistic issue, where the numbers could be wrong. But, in our tests, we're seeing that sort of really help. And so I think that's going to sort of accelerate cycles where people, even just basic SEO questions, okay, what happened to our impressions? And which of these specific keywords improved over the last 3 months? And why did our goal completions and key events go down in March compared to February? So you can actually ask those questions quite easily, and it'll look into the data. So the tools are getting better on that end. So I actually think if you have great data going in, you're going to get those answers be pretty good, and then be able to make good decisions. And so now's the time to get all that stuff dialed up. Also, though, I think just overall, we said in our Startup Marketing Outlook last year that it was the year of efficiency. We interviewed 250 startup marketers, and a huge percentage of them said that they were being asked to do more with less. It was very tough. And yet, here we are in 2025, and I've had discussions with several CMOs in the last few weeks who have been asked to cut yet further into their marketing budget to try and work out how they can do more with less. The pips are squeaking, I think, in a lot of organizations. Budget cuts are here again.
They are. And I feel like marketing is always kind of first on the chopping block anyways. And so here we are again, 2.0, the year of... It's not a giant shock when your target audience is tightening their belts. You have to tighten your belt. It's just the way that it is. And I think, going back to attribution, that's why it's so important to know what's working, what's not. Where are you spending your advertising dollars? Where are you spending your marketing dollars? If you're working with an agency, what are they working on? Is it working? All of those things. So honestly, I think we might always be in the year of efficiency, especially at the startup and scale up level. I think it might just always be the year of efficiency. There's always going to be something going on. And if you're not operating at peak efficiency right now, you really need to think about what that looks like, and not necessarily cutting people or cutting initiatives, but just where can you be a little leaner? Because you know what? My guess is in 2026, we're going to say it's the year of efficiency 3.0. Just my guess.
That's fair. And look, it's just being asked to do more with less as ever. This is also an opportunity, right? I mean, obviously, if you have great attribution and good measurement, your ability to defend the marketing spend is a lot better, right? You just can show the impact of each of the activities that you're doing. But also, if your competitors are cutting, this is also an opportunity for bold companies to sort of invest and spend. And so when I say I'm talking to companies where they're having to do more with less, there are certainly others where they're like, it is go time because we're zigging whilst the others are zagging. And we are going to build our brand now during the tougher times because it's maybe more effective. There's just slightly less noise than at other times during the peak where everyone is investing at the same time. And I mean, also just maybe changes to the mix. I see, companies looking, certainly we see a lot of demand for PR at the moment. Why is that? Because people are leaning into this, building their brand and brand awareness and educating their customers and building their reputation. We're seeing it because people recognize the impact of PR on LLMs and AI search. All those great articles are fed into the models, and that's the information that's coming back in the prompts by your prospects. And that gives me good faith because PR is a long-term investment. We are on the flip side seeing a lot of people look at where they're spending their paid media spend. Some are certainly increasing it to new networks. Reddit is one that a lot of companies are looking at. They're questioning their expense on LinkedIn because it's always been a high cost per click there. But those prospects are right there. That's still very much part of the mix. So it's not necessarily all cutting, it's adjusting and maybe sort of taking this moment to kind of go, hey, maybe we should be doing something on Reddit. Or maybe if we haven't been doing PR, now's the time because there's a lot of benefits for investing in that today. So changes to the mix.
Reddit's a great example because, the targeting, is it as granular as LinkedIn? No, but it's quite granular. There's a lot of subreddits out there. And when folks say to us, okay, LinkedIn's great, but where can I get some cheaper clicks that are roughly as targeted or in the ballpark? And Reddit's a great answer. And it's maybe a channel that people didn't totally think of as B2B that long ago, but it's definitely, we're seeing it work with a lot of clients. So yeah, it's not always about cutting. It's just maybe where can we get a little bit more juice from our squeeze doing something else.
That's right. I mean, for example, related to this, content teams, I'm seeing creating great content and now sort of tapping into the paid media budget to sort of boost that content in front of their target audiences. We're creating it. We know that organic search is getting harder on our blog. We know that organic social is, increasingly going to paid. You have got to be in the sort of paid content side, boosting the content to get it in front of you. We're seeing that. And honestly, the budgets to amplify your content are not going to be massive compared to sort of full demand gen programs on search or display or other channels. So just shifting the budgets around a little bit to kind of get more value, always good, but particularly now in this sort of uncertain time. Another one I think here we wanted to talk about is just a general marketing team. As a marketing leader, your team is going to be going through a lot. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world right now. People are worried or concerned or tired with just keeping up with the news, right? There's just so much. What's your advice to sort of marketing leaders when it comes to just keeping their team focused and keeping them creative and keeping them sort of on track?
I think it's just being a good human. Marketers are people too. Most of them are people too. I mean, there are some AI robots creeping in there, but for the most part, we're still humans. And Morgan, I know you did a podcast, probably a year ago or so, about burnout and how we were worried about that on the startup marketing side. We still are. And I think you can never go wrong just managing people as humans. They can only do what they can do. The budget is what it is. The goals are what they are. If you're a marketing leader and you're handed a set of goals, I think it's your job, maybe not to push back. Maybe pushback is too strong of a phrase, but to be a bit consultative to the people above you who may not be marketing experts and say, look, I get why this is the goal, but considering our budget, considering our target audience, considering, whatever A, B, and C, I'm not sure this is quite doable, but I think this number over here is doable. Maybe try to take a little bit of pressure off your team that way. If that doesn't work, then, you got to figure out some efficiencies. And the answer is never to just make everybody work that much harder and keep their fingers crossed, because nobody likes to function that way. So I think it's just be a good human, be good to your people, and they'll work hard and be good for you.
That's a great advice. I mean, look, the Pope just died and we got a new Pope. If you're Catholic, that's definitely going to impact your life and be on your mind. And regardless of your personal religion, members of your team on that issue might be distracted or elated or sad. They're going to bring some of that humanity to work. And you as a marketing leader have to sort of support them. And I think as a senior sort of leader, we've got to recognize a lot of our team members have not been through many economic cycles. They may be uncertain, extra uncertain. They may have concerns that you are not aware of. And so just helping provide that context. This is probably what happens. I mean, us as leaders, we never know what's around the corner. I think that level of uncertainty is particularly high now. But just contextualizing it and helping people know that it's going to be okay is really important and will enable people to do their best jobs. I don't just mean glossing over challenges that the industry or our nation might face or they individually, but contextualizing the historical view, the wide view, like this in comparison to everything else. I think those things are great ways to help team members reframe what they're going through. And just being empathetic, as you said, I think goes a long way.
And a great way to do this, and something I do with my team is, we have a specific time of the week where we talk about client work so that one-on-ones can be about the person. Because all too often you see one-on-ones dive into, oh, but this client over here, and oh, did I mention this? Or we should really talk about that SOW coming up, or all of these things. And you never get to talk about the person. You never get to say, hey, how's it going? How's your life? You got vacation planned this summer? Like, what are you up to? So I think it's really important, even something just as simple as keeping a one-on-one can make all the difference. Because even just if somebody is going through a hard time, for somebody to say, hey, how are you doing? You doing all right? Everything okay? Can be a huge, huge lift for that person. Just to know that somebody cares. They're not just viewed as this cog in a wheel kind of thing. Something just that simple can make all the difference.
I 100% agree with that, particularly if you're remote. There's a very good reason why every Monday, our company, we have daily stand-ups and we call them the campfire. And on a Monday, when we've got big to-dos and we've got priorities and things which we all want to, what do? We spend some time just asking people, how are you? What did you get up to at the weekend? What's going on in your life to ease you back into the week? And so that it brings people together and it's fun, right? To sort of enjoy it. And you can hear how people are doing, and we're not expecting everyone to be skipping in and every day to be all roses in their lives, but they can help sort of share what they're doing. And that's great, right? And that's what you want, to bring the person first, and then we'll ease into, right, the work that we want to do. And that's one of the ways. And often you've got to recognize that for a lot of remote work, they might not be in a ton of meetings. This might be one of the few touch points that they have during a day where they're actually talking to someone who's asking them, how are you? And I think that can be a real lift. So that's something that we focus on. All right. And then there are a few things, though. We just talked about, hey, a whole bunch of stuff is changing. And there's always a tendency to do that, right? Budgets are changing and your team is changing and buyers are changing and tactics are changing. And that makes for great headlines. But there are some things that don't change during an age of uncertainty or that shouldn't change. So let's just wrap up this episode by just touching on some of those, Nicole.
I think your company mission and vision are not going to change. Not going to change. Maybe the way that you deliver on those promises changes a little bit, but those don't change. Who you're talking to, unless you're doing a massive brand refresh or you're unveiling a huge new product, if you're just doing the same old, those personas are who they are. Their pain points might shift a little bit, but what's keeping them awake at night is typically not going to change. And then, your brand voice and tone, that's not going to change. If you're fun and lighthearted or you're very serious and very buttoned up, like that's not going to change. So there are a lot of things that aren't going to change and that shouldn't change because you're just going to muddy the waters if you try to change them.
I think that brand part of it is critical. You've got to show up consistently over time with a similar brand values, brand voice. Literally, one of the first things that you need to do is be setting that stuff on your company. And then, yes, the representation might change, but the brand itself should not change through the company's life cycle, particularly. And so now it could be tempting to sort of question, maybe we should just change everything, right? But what got you here definitely worked. Things are uncertain, but unless you're at a massive step change, the weather has changed a little bit, but the climate is the same. So your brand should be consistent. I do think keeping on doing that really works and investing in the brand. Yeah, update the personas. Sure. How have they changed? You should review those regularly, probably more regularly than most of us actually do. So this is a good time to do that. And then I just think the overall working pace, like just keep the pressure on, keep the pace going, keep the pace up. The world is uncertain, but that doesn't mean that your marketing needs to be sort of plagued by uncertainty. I'm not sure whether we should do this, or maybe we're questioning everything. That's just going to destabilize your team and be confusing and mess up the metrics. Just keep up the pace. And so I think that will help sort of chart things through. But, we're definitely in an age of uncertainty here. We wanted to just sort of pull the car over a little bit and talk about the reasons for that and to unpack some of the priorities, what that means, from a messaging, budget, tactical, team management, and measurement perspective. But I think also brand-wise and pace and planning should all just carry on, and things will ease up, or at least you'll be able to thrive during this period, because it's going to happen. All right, Nicole, thank you for sharing some of your advice there. Really enjoyed that. And I think it's useful to sort of share some of the things that we're seeing, because we talk to a lot of companies, right? And so, there's a lot of commonalities. So we want to just pull those together and share them out to everyone else. But Nicole, thanks. I appreciate that. And thank you for listening. And if you like that, then please subscribe, drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And we shall see you all again next week.